Hey, hey,
Yeah,
hey.
student. Love it. Welcome to Coffee Experts Club, Drew Moody.
Hello, hello. I love that intro.
That
It's just pleasant elevator escalation, and then the beat drops.
I love it. So good. Mason putting together some good stuff for us. I love it.
It's good.
Oh man, how's your day today, brother?
It's been good, man. It's like I was telling you, we got a little break from the direct sunshine today, so my sunburned skin can take a little rest.
I love it. I'm just getting sun down here, so I'm like sat out in the chair for like 10 minutes between meetings. I'm like, thank you, God. I'll take the UVs.
Yeah, yeah. Summertime.
Summertime. Well, hey man, I'm excited to talk today. I feel like you get to interview all different kinds of people on Coffee Experts Club. We've gotten to talk to people that are part of big chains and then like smaller indies, and um, but it's really special when you can meet with people that you got a ton of history with. And I know that our guest today, Drew, you have a ton of history with, and it's somebody that you've gotten to see kind of come up through the ranks from the very beginnings, and then really earn her spot within organizations you've been part of. And so not only is it somebody that's dear to your heart, but also somebody that was really dear to a really special time in both of our lives with roasters, and a lot of those early days of like coffee being really embedded into both of us. And then from there, obviously, we built our foundation up. So maybe you would like to introduce our guest today.
Yeah, this guest today, she's like you said, dear to my heart. We became really good friends. Long time ago, working at one of our more diverse on our diversely ran locations. She was one of the sleepers. You know, she worked there for a lot of years and always had the potential, and I always saw the potential in her. And finally, one day, decided she wanted to manage, and then just absolutely kicked ass at it. So. I'm excited to pick her brain today and hear what she's got to say about the coffee world and her experience in it.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Come on in, Mace. Let's bring her in. There she is,
Hello.
Melissa. How you doing, sister?
Great. How are you doing?
Good, good. So hey, like we got to get it out in the clear. So do you want me to call you Melissa, or do you want me to call you Melly? Because that's all I've got from Drew for as long as I've known about you is his nickname. So you tell me what you want me to call you on the show.
I guess Melly's fine. That
I
works.
love it. That's awesome. Well, Melly, great to have you with us. And honestly, I feel like yeah, Drew has talked about so much history with you and has talked so much about things that he's got to do in coffee with you and to see your growth trajectory. I would love just maybe Drew, if you want to kind of take front and center today with Melly, because I know your
Sure.
friendship is so good and your history in coffee is so good. And then let's really talk about some of those things that you kind of introduced her about of how you got to know her, and what does it mean that she was a sleeper, and then how does it work that she came up to a place of management? What did she ascend to? I think that she's a stud in coffee and somebody we're hoping to tuck in and pull down to Belize maybe with us to get some vacation
Yeah.
time out of her and seeing Coffee de las Mayas. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, I was tiptoeing around the subject, but the G-Way location was kind of a difficult one to manage. And when I first came in to manage the store, Melly was one of the employees there, and I had a meeting with everybody, a meeting with all the employees, and to ask about things and see how things were ran and their perspective and the support they were receiving. And when I met with Melly, she was just casual and was there and was really good, but didn't really show off. And that's what I mean by sleeper. And she actually was the only one who remained at the store through all the big changes that we had, because we had some big changes over the next few years. And I think I worked side by side with you on bar for a good 4 or 5 years. So um, that's what I mean by sleeper. A lot of good potential, but doesn't necessarily show it off to the people around her. Um, yeah, it was a fun time, and I don't know what you exactly remember before and after the changes that came to the GUA location. If you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about the days before. I think Jenny was the manager at the time, and then the transition through.
Yeah. So Melly, tell us, sister. Like, so what does it mean from your perspective on that whole thing? Like, how did that? So Drew just gave you his depiction of how it was. How did it feel on your end of things? Like, why were you not one to step up and say, hey, I'd like to do this? And then what led to your transition?
Well, I just never really saw myself as a manager or somebody who was, busy all the time and managing a crew. Um, but I don't know, working there and working with all the great people there, it really changed my perspective because everybody kind of grew out of their shell in a way, and everybody kind of was stepping up to do uh, management and leadership stuff. So that made it kind
Yeah.
of easier to jump into.
I know,
And yeah.
like G-Way was a monster. I remember early iteration, like when Jarek was the manager there and like raising people up, and like when they were starting to try and raise Taryn left, and we are trying to raise Jarek up out of his seat there at G-Way. It took a long time before Wes was even willing to let go of it because you've got this huge store that churns so much cash, right? And you have all of these customers, and you have all this volume. It's really a lot of anxiety for an owner to be willing to release somebody that they know has been owning that, and managing that well. And then Drew, I think you got sucked in right behind Jarek, right? Or at some level there, where as Jarek was exiting, like you had some role in G-Way at that point, and then that's maybe not that for me because I think that it's good for people to understand what we mean by it was a little bit of a hectic monster is like good sized cafe, crazy drive, right? That just wrapped the entire property. So literally it could line for days. You could have cars for days through the G-Way drive. So maybe just set that out for people so they can understand. Because I think that if I was Melly, I'd probably be a sleeper. I'm like, hell no, I don't want to fall. Don't put me at the helm. Like, oh, are you nuts? Like I'll do my shift. I'll do what I got to do, but I'm not looking for more opportunity to have to manage this beast.
But yeah, as we know, anybody who's worked in coffee, the management role isn't always the most decorated or sought after position, and especially in one where the business is still young and finding its stride as far as systems and management and support goes. So um, I remember Wes saying after little time into G-Way that they oh we created a monster, now how do we manage this monster because it was so busy. And working, we were like, I always like to say, we're like the Marine Corps of baristas, because I mean you'd hop on at 5:30 in the morning and it'd be nonstop, 25, 30 people with the drive through and with the in-house in line until you hopped off at 1 or 2 p.m. So you really built up your stamina, and you had to be really tight knit with your crew. So there was a lot of times where we'd have to all take a deep breath together because tensions get really high, and you got to make sure everything's going out on time and things aren't messed up. And so it would be beneficial to be a sleeper at some point. And I think when Jarek was transitioning out, I don't know exactly his trajectory, but it went to Jenny for a good while actually first, and then I went and had my journeys and my adventures through roasters until it was time to for Jenny to move on to do something else that she wanted to do. But it was we just were moving on to car timers, so
Yep.
we wanted the ship to run well before we installed a car timer, because on top of all the regular stress of keeping things clean and making sure baristas are happy and customers are well served and the presentation's nice, and then stacking on, well, how fast are your cars actually moving? What does that
Right.
metric look like, and what does that measurement actually represent within not only the customer experience but the barista experience too? Because as we know, the barista experience is it's one that actually really affects the customer experience. So in the time that I came on, that was kind of the transition phase of like, okay, let's button these things up so that we can begin building on this foundation. We have a really busy store, we have a really good crew. Now how do we fine tune these things so that when we get busier and we add traffic, the crew is still going to run properly, and the new systems we bring in are going to run properly. So I don't know, Melly, your experience before and after the car timer. I know it was a love hate thing for a long time for a lot of people, but I don't know. It eventually became kind of fun, and I don't know what you thought about the competition between morning shift and night shift, or like how we'd set up the crew with me on shots or you on shots. Or I know Melly was our window gal for a while, and she's just so good with customers. So maybe talk to us a little bit about what it was like working with the car timer and working with the customers.
I liked the car timer. It got everybody kept everybody on their toes. Um, to be honest with you, but
I think
um,
car timers when the era rolled out, right? Because I mean, obviously, the only thing you can do before you have car timers is put somebody there to police it, right? And so, like,
mhm.
I remember, like Shannon and her posse would
Yeah.
straight post up across the street with their timer, and be telling us how we were doing, and people would get rated down on it. So I think that the thing that I really appreciated about when we did get timers is no, there's no subjectivity anymore. It's just all objectivity. Like all it is, it's a number on a screen, and everybody's watching the same number. Everybody's accountable for the same thing. It gives you that like global visibility where Ben is watching it, behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain, like just watching everybody's car timers, and can, then rattle down to regionals on, hey, so we're having some problems with times based on this, but it's all very, very metric. No longer is there any subjectivity. No longer is there people and their opinions about why, what is happening when. It's like, no. We know the exact amount of cup counts that went out. We know the exact amount of people that were in the drive. We know the exact amount of time that it took people to get through there. And in my mind, I feel like once you get down to tight metrics, that's something you can work with. Where it gets a little bit crazy is when everything is more subjective, and it's like more left to how does this person feel about this manager? And then there's opinions about it. Well, this person, I sent this person to time this person, and this manager was working, and then was there a personality clash between those people? And then you're chasing things that don't even have anything to do with coffee anymore, but no, it's simply a matter of speed, service, strength, right? That's the three pillars for roasters. And it's like, how fast are we putting out a drink out the window? At what quality? And are we taking care of the customer, which is, I think, a really good thing. So I know I kind of like ramrodded the timers through, so maybe I'm the worst person to ask about it. But I just felt like it took out the subjectivity out of the room and made everything just super objective. Numbers don't lie. So I think that,
Well,
yeah.
one of your amazing talents, Melly, and why I know that the window is not the most sought after position right after being a manager, but you worked it well because you were good with customers. And one thing that the timer did was allowed you to like know exactly how long you're going to be talking to customers. And as a barista, anyone who's done it for any amount of time, you can run out of things to talk about pretty easily. If you're not coming up with random conversation pieces, or I mean, we all pick things up from each other about little phrases or ways to pass the time. So the timer was kind of a benefit as to knowing how long you're spending. Like, okay, I've been 3 minutes with a customer is actually a long time, or a minute and a half is like the key, or maybe a minute. Just sometimes you can pack in a lot of stuff into a minute. So the car timers were nice, and eventually rolled out company wide. I think to a huge. It was received pretty well by the baristas, at least the ones who are motivated to be, at any faster level than 3 minutes a car.
Can I just throw this out because I feel like you laid out GWay really well, but I think obviously in any of those bigger cafes there's some pretty significant pain points, right? Like scheduling becomes like a cluster function of all belief, right? But then also, let's not like depreciate like what about like the drive? You know what I mean, like I just remember it's falling dumping rain, and we have these big potholes, and somebody's got to get out there with gravel and fill in these pot. Like there was things that like doesn't go anywhere on anybody's resume when they're like, oh yeah, no. Not only do I do all the stock, not only do I manage all the baristas, not only do I deal with all their personalities, not only do I handle the schedule, not only do I answer to the owner when they get pissed about how our drive is doing or how many cups we're turning based on a time, but then when I get off of that, however you said it, Marine Corps schedule of
Yeah.
just managing 20 customers in drive, I got to fall and heave gravel out to the parking lot and be filling in the potholes, like all the different things that come along with like running a big store like that. Melly, did you have to deal with those kinds of things, or do they just always call in the boys to do the dirty work?
Yeah, I mean, not exactly filling the potholes, but other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, those coffee shop secrets. Yeah,
Was there a grease
there.
trap? Did you have a grease trap they had to clean from the inside?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yes, everybody
Eventually,
loved it. Everybody loved snaking the grease trap. That was the best job.
eventually, when, as you called them, Shannon's posse, when they were taken off car timer duty, they got grease trap duty. Praise the Lord, because Melly should, a regular barista shouldn't be cleaning out the grease traps, but occasionally that would happen.
We did it for years, brother. That was a yearly. I mean, I think it was Cody that first tried to dump that off onto the baristas, and then once Cody got it off onto the baristas, and then it wasn't until Shannon's crew picked it up that we got it off the baristas. But I just think all the things that people don't think about with coffee, all the things that
Mhm.
people just think, oh, I just show up and I get my coffee drink from this familiar face in the drive, not realizing, I don't know, there's a lot of moving pieces, and then creating good systems behind it, and then managing those good systems. So I know Drew doesn't give out compliments easily, Melly, and so for Drew to speak so well of you, I know that you did awesome. And then you didn't stop there, right? You went on from there. You moved on to managing other stores too.
I managed the one in Kennewick, but
Yeah.
after that, I'm not managing right now. So
Well, we had the Kennewick location was Also a beast. I mean, we had some stores that were monsters, and I think one of the challenges that we had that we faced when you were manager was transitioning from a double sided to a single sided. Were you managing when we did that? That was your crew.
Yeah.
So what can you, I mean, outline at least from your experience some of the benefits of going from a double sided to a single sided?
It's just, at least with our shop, it was a flow issue. Like we couldn't find a very good flow to help two windows. So once we closed the other window, it was a lot easier to get a system going and figure out what worked. At least, yeah, for our shop, because it was so small and everything was placed really strangely. And um, yeah,
All of the 10 square feet you guys had to work.
yeah,
Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing to get used to, right? Like G-Way was huge, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
like 4,000 square feet or something crazy. And then to shrink down to something that was just a postage stamp. I mean, probably 500 square feet. I mean,
I
that's a
think
big
it'd be
shift.
easier, but it wasn't easier.
But I will say the difference between single window and double window, Drew, I think that's a good thing for us to maybe just sit on here for a minute. Because, obviously, Drew, you and I consulting people, I think the first things people always go to architects with is, no, no, I need a double sided. But I feel like that sounds better than it is because you think, well, surely that's going to do better because I've got double the windows to put cups out. You know what I mean? So stacking them on both sides is going to work. But I feel like that's not always the case. And I think that Pasco really proved that to us, right? Like some
mhm.
little same postage stamp size drive up, but only one window. And Pasco kept up with the biggest of the largest cafes. So maybe just talk about that a little bit. What your experience of two window versus one window, Drew, and any questions you want to bring up to Melly around it.
Yeah, I mean, I was a cafe guy. I was a cafe guy almost my whole experience. I did as a regional manage some double sided drives and did some grand openings with some double sided drives, and we regretted it. Almost every time we did a new one that was double sided, and yeah, Pasco, like you said, kept up. It seems like you're splitting the time when you have two windows, but really you're doubling the time. It's
Right.
taking twice as long because not only is your manager who's working either not able to focus on the other side and make sure the quality is there, or trying to focus on both sides and taking twice as long to make sure that the quality is there. And then you have two 3 minute cars on each side, instead of two 1 minute cars, or you can get through a car if you have a line of cars even at 3 drinks a car. You can get those cars through in about a minute each. Maybe less if you're being fast and you're running orders. But if you have two windows and you have each car gets 3 drinks, then that's going to take a lot longer because it's just unless you have two machines, you have two crews that are working that way. But that's just impossible in the size store that we had there. We couldn't have even fit another machine in there, let alone another two baristas. So when you have a single sided drive through, it improves the experience of the customer from the time perspective, the attention from the barista perspective, the quality of the drinks because there's no miscommunications, there's no multiple drinks going out the windows at each time, and then the baristas themselves get less stressed out. I remember when we did transition from a double sided to a single sided. Our retention was a lot higher. That also happened to be when Melly was managing, and she's just a whiz with people. So, the retention of the people there. The Kennewick had kind of a difficult run for baristas for a little while. But when we transitioned, people were just happier, and the customers were happier, and our numbers actually increased. We got busier because I think the experience was just a more pleasant one all around for everybody. Stressed out baristas cause stressed out customers.
100%. Melly, did you feel like for you that was your experience as well, like being able to really lean in, invest in time? Like, did you appreciate moving to one window? Because I know through times you and I've talked about in the past, it's almost like you're running two different businesses, right? Two different shops because of the attention split.
Oh yeah, it helped a lot for sure. Um, it took our times down from we couldn't get any coffees out after like 2 minutes, and once we shut the other side, our cars were getting out pretty quickly. We could get it within the time, so and that's with only two baristas on, so that was pretty cool.
And that
Yeah.
was
Which
another
did you
huge
prefer,
benefit.
Melly?
Sorry, go ahead.
What
So
was that?
go ahead, Drew. Go ahead, Drew. You ask first, and then we're bombarding her now. And she's like, "These are none of the questions we talked about. You're not even asking me the questions you told me you're going to
Yeah.
ask me. We're just bombarding her with a bunch of
Fine.
randos." So, Drew, ask yours, and then I'll get to mine.
Well, I mean, it was just a metric that we couldn't have found without the timers, so it was another benefit to the car timers.
Hmm.
Yeah, cutting down staff, right? Being able to say, hey, how much staff does it take? It takes less staff, obviously, if you've got one window versus if you're trying to run two different windows with two different sets of machines or even the single set of machines. Smart.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, Melly, let's get to the questions that we're supposed to be asking you. And that is, what do you feel um, so you can take it two different ways, sister. Like you can go um, best lesson you ever learned or taught, or hardest thing you ever had to work through being a manager in a coffee stand or in the cafe, either one. What do you feel like are words of wisdom? Words of wisdom from Melly. That's what we're looking for in the next few minutes here.
Communication is very much key. Um, One time at G-Way, we were all working, and it was a hot day. It was super busy, and for some reason, things weren't working out very well between any of us and the customers. So after the shift, we all hopped off and we just kind of talked about it, and then we never had the same problem again. Um, so yeah, communication in the shop, and yeah, after is good. So.
Well, I remember. I think I know what day you're talking about, and it was kind
Mhm.
of rough because first of all, we were uncomfortable together on bar, so talking about it afterwards is not always the easiest thing. But
Right.
being able to, I mean, what we did at GUA was kind of special because we were all really tight knit, and we tried to schedule cohesively with what people wanted and where their skills were at so that they were
Yeah.
happy. And then a happy in store makes happy outside of the store. And we could all hang out as real people, outside of the store. And so when we really got to know each other, it's easier to have those conversations off bar. It's easier to talk things out rather than just get stiff and prideful about it. So we did have a tight knit crew. And eventually people did start to move out and manage stores. And that's, I think, kind of where Melly funneled her way up into the progression. It does, I think, take a person to person experience, which a lot of the managers don't pick up on that, I think.
Yeah. I think too. I mean, I know I've got a daughter. I've got a young daughter that works coffee. That works a little indie up in Corvallis area or up in the Salem area. And I think that obviously, a lot of young people like with a lot of opinions or a lot of easy to be offended. Like there's a lot of energy like that. And I just feel like Melly, do you feel like in scenarios like that, it's better just to step in and just talk direct, like rather than just beat around the bush of, hey, so here's the situation, and we need to make it right. As a manager, you're dealing with a lot of young ladies, a lot of young dudes, and just like getting in front of it rather than allowing it just to linger in the stand and potentially people leave over it, right? If the energy's not good in the stand, people don't stick around. They don't like that. So, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on
Yeah.
direct
Most of
communication?
most of the time, it's best to stand up and say something up front. It depends on the people, I think, or the crew. Sometimes it's good to wait after and talk to people individually too, about things.
Yeah, that's true
I
because
love it.
different personality types. Some people don't like talking about it in public because they feel like you're singling them
Yeah.
out. Even if it's a group problem, and you talk about it with the group, they'll feel singled out and clam up. And when you hurt somebody's pride, it's really, really difficult to get them to be open again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know, Drew, you were talking last night, even just watching the chat going on in WhatsApp, on the DLM kids and just thinking, just watching them go back and forth. And you're like, hey, so key in on this is usually where it can get tense. But just to watch them work through it together, even just in a WhatsApp chat, I think like that's what we're trying to all create, right? In the businesses that we create, all of us know when you walk into some place and tensions are high and you're like, is this where I want to buy coffee this morning? Because I just wanted a good experience. I just want them to ask me how my dog's doing or whatever it is that you remember about each one of your guests and their name. But I think that um, really working hard, I think, to maintain a culture where it's healthy and people enjoy coming to work. And if there's an issue that you do figure out, like you were saying, like, do I need to sit this person down individually? Do I need to pull these people apart, and talk to them together? Is it whatever the correction method is? But I do think, man, coming to a place where you're creating a good experience because in the end, people just want to come into some place that knows their name, that gives them the drink that they're looking for, and they want it to be quick, right? Let me just show up and have a good experience. They don't want to deal with drama behind the bar. Like that's the last thing they want to deal with is drama behind the
Yeah.
bar. So how do we keep that out of customers' way? By being the people that have to sometimes be the bigger person and deal with those situations that we don't want to have to confront, but leaving them unconfronted just allows it to fester and get ugly and get messy, and then it's harder to maintain, and then it becomes a bigger problem because then it starts to poison other people as they talk to other people about their pain points with each other. And so, Melly, I know it's not an easy job. Super, a lot of man, just gratitude for people out there like you that lead well, and Drew, people like you that recognize talent in somebody like Melly and continue to nudge and don't let them be a sleeper and be like, you need to get in there. Come on now, let's get in the ring.
Took me years, but she finally came around and was a shining
Awesome.
star. So.
Well, Melly, thank you so much for joining us today, Coffee Experts Club. Been super good to have you. I know it was kind of a last minute request to jump you on the show. We had a guest fall out and you were willing to step in. So thanks for being awesome, and look forward to seeing you again on Coffee Experts Club in the future. Thanks everybody for showing up. See you next week.